Wednesday, July 27th. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. The weather map is full of chidushim, full of shakaroos today, all over the place. The computer models, the United States, other countries as well. We have in Russia, the Caspian Sea. In Russia, I don't know if this is normal or not, but we have water temperatures 80 degrees in some sections, generally 79 going all the way up north, at least 44 degrees north latitude. The cities on the coast are responding to that with high humidity. Dew points mid to upper dew points low 70s in some locations. Dew points rising into the mid 70s later in the week. Dew points mid 70s, hot and humid. These are cities in Russia. Serious heat and humidity. Not even according to nothing relative. This is really, it's just hot and humid over there. That's what's going to be happening over there in Russia. We have temperatures going up to 108 degrees in a city in Spain, and it's more than just one city. Later in the week, this is major heat. France also, I don't know how to, NANTES, temperatures going about 90 degrees later in the week. We have here in this country, probably the biggest shocker is looking at the European computer model. The European computer model shows Arizona getting dew points of 77 degrees. Now, that's got to be not accurate. So we're going to go according to the GFS model that has dew points in the mid-60s. But where does the European computer model get this from? I don't know, but there is lots of thunderstorms and flash flooding occurring in Arizona. Now, we have a phenomenal occurrence that happened in St. Louis, Missouri. This is a record. The first time since 1915. Not only that, we've had episodes like this in Missouri before, but it's been a long time. We've had 11 inches of rain in 6-7 hours, however many hours it was back in 1993 in places in southwest Missouri. And the list goes on. Generally, it's under 10 inches. Parts of the St. Louis area received over a foot of rain. The St. Louis area broke a record with the highest 24-hour rainfall on record, 9.04 inches. The precipitation started late in the day on July 25th. We're going to talk about what exactly caused this precipitation to start. The previous record was 7.02 inches, set in 1915, which occurred during the remnants of a hurricane. What's absolutely amazing, the highest 6-hour total occurred July 26th, was 7.68 inches in a mere 6 hours. Now, why do I say that's amazing? Because the previous record of 24 hours, the remnants of a hurricane, was 7.02 inches in 1915. That occurred during a 24-hour period. So in a mere 6 hours, the St. Louis area broke that previous record of 7.02 inches, which was a 24-hour record. 7.31 inches is the normal amount of rain for July and August combined, says the National Weather Service. St. Louis surpassed all of that in a mere 6 hours. I do think that the surpassing the 1915 record is a lot more impressive, and the fact that St. Louis did it in a mere 6-hour period. And actually, the rain was heavier to the north of the recording station, or north of Lambert International Airport. The heaviest rain 1 mile west-northwest of St. Peter's, which was in St. Charles, Missouri, 12.86 inches. That amount was reported at 12:54 p.m. This precipitation fell from 11 p.m. on July 25th, Monday night, and it didn't stop at the Lambert Airport. The National Weather Service tells us it did not stop until 2 o'clock p.m. This was a 15-hour rain. That's also impressive for the summertime in St. Louis. To have a 15-hour precipitation event is something that occurs in the winter months or spring, not the summertime, or in the remnants of a hurricane, not in the pop-up thunderstorms. There's a lot more to say about this. A lot of contrasts going on here. one thing we could say, there's an extreme drought, the highest level of drought possible right now, going on in Arkansas. On July 22nd, the National Weather Service came out with an article with the latest update on the drought. Southern Missouri is on the level of a D4. There's an area in south central Missouri on the level of a D4. The St. Louis area had abnormally dry conditions. So we have two extremes going on, and this is also going to create we have a very dangerous situation developing because of this. Not just because of the floods, but we have a situation which will be developing for next week, and it is not clear at this point. It's really not clear what's going to be happening next week. What is clear is that we have a high pressure ridge once again that builds back into the Midwest. This one includes Chicago, and likely, probably even up into the Milwaukee area as well. At least, it's the Lake Michigan. It makes it difficult to really be able to forecast for Milwaukee. But the European computer model does show at least a couple days next week, one in the beginning, one at the end, with temperatures going well into the 90s. We're going to see those dew points go up as well. Dew points approaching 70, even higher than 70 for the northern Illinois, the Wisconsin area. But you go to the St. Louis area, the European computer model is responding big time to this heavy floods going on in St. Louis right now. And it has gone ahead and has pushed the dew points up to levels which we've never heard of before. The highest dew point ever in St. Louis was a dew point of 83 degrees. That's the highest ever. The same is for Chicago. The dew point next week is expected to go into the mid and upper 70s, but it's very difficult to know exactly where the dew point will be in the upper 70s and where not. And there's plenty of areas in Missouri where dew points are going into the low 80s. Tuesday, 7 p.m., there's an area in Missouri where the dew point is expected to be 85 degrees. 85 degrees. If that actually happens, that's just amazing. And on the other, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. It's basically, you have water all over the place. The water's going to be hot. So there's an enormous contrast next week between the GFS model, which has not responded to this water at all. It still has dew points in the mid and low 60s, putting temperatures up to 106 degrees for next week in St. Louis. Exactly where we were this past Shabbos, Saturday, July 23rd, temperature hit 105. The GFS makes a ton of sense. The only thing is that it's skipping this enormous event. How is it supposed to know that thing happened? I mean, the European computer model is taking that event into consideration for sure. Pushing the dew points all the way up, that's going to drop the temperatures into the mid-90s. St. Louis still might manage to get into the upper 90s. Heat indices going up to 115 degrees in many places in Missouri and Illinois for next week. That's at the very extreme. That's peak heating. So most of the time, we're not going to see heat indices at 115. That's going to be the peak heat index in the state for Missouri and Illinois around 115. That's according to the European computer model. In any specific city, you could probably expect a peak heat index around 110, which means most of the hours in the afternoon, we're looking at heat indices between 105 and 110. The winds in the St. Louis area between 3 and 6 miles per hour. The National Weather Service tells us that heat will be building back into the Midwest with heat indices above 100 Tuesday onward. So they are being cautious with predicting any type of extremes, but the European computer model, which did get it right back in May, when that first heat wave of the year, which occurred right after flooding, dew points also went into the mid-70s. Right now, the flooding is much worse, but back then, there was also flooding in Arkansas all over the place. The thunderstorms, going back to these storms, they occurred on the northern, what's called the Ring of Fire. And the Ring of Fire is an area right outside the hot air, a heat wave, the hot air, which is not under the ridge 100%, so there's instability. That's the area of peak thunderstorm development, and all of that energy, it has enormous energy from the heat wave, gets put into these storms. And what happened is in the St. Louis area, the storms were pretty much stationary, and there was training. The storms were going over the same areas over and over again because there was a front that stalled right over the region. So ordinarily, even though the heavy downpours are normal, these types of torrential downpours are normal with thunderstorms, but they don't always occur over the same county, storm after storm, going over the same area. Right now, you look at the map, we have areas in exceptional drought, and then this area where the moisture content is at 100%. That moisture content of 100% is going to be moving east. If you look at, over the next few days, we're going to see very high dew points next week also for Ohio. Not the 80s, I don't think, mid or upper 70s. But it's going to be quite different than what we have been seeing. It's a pattern. The first two heat waves were very humid. The second heat wave of the year back in June, the first one of June, the second one of the year, dew points approached 80 degrees. And after that, we had drought conditions pushing dew points down into the 60s. And then we have back to the very humid conditions over there. We have heat and humidity building on the East Coast. We have excessive heat warnings in effect for the Carolina area. We have major heat going on in the Pacific Northwest. There are places in the Pacific Northwest in the interior parts which are expected to get to 110, possibly even higher than 110 degrees today. We have the Phoenix, Arizona rainfall amounts of 1 to 2 inches an hour in those areas which are getting the flash flooding and thunderstorms. And we do have dew points occurring where there are 70 degrees. Nothing like what the European computer model is so far, not what the European computer model has been saying. The European computer model has been overdoing it for most of the hours. We'll have to see what happens after this. And then we mentioned in Russia, those temperatures go into the low to mid 90s in Astrakhan. Temperatures going into the 90s there with high humidity. And we have another city, starts with an M, which is also on the Caspian Sea in Russia. Heat and humidity is expected to build over the Montana area, reaching its peak on August 1st. That heat and humidity goes into Scottsbluff, Nebraska, also on August 1st. Peak heat moves into the Dakotas for August 2nd next week, then spreads east, going into the Midwest, August 3rd. August 4th, it then moves 4th, 5th, or 6th, it starts to move up north into the Wisconsin, parts of the southern Wisconsin, the Chicago area. Heat and humidity builds on to the East Coast as well for the end of next week. But one thing that could also be pointed out and should be pointed out is that the St. Louis area could look forward to an absolutely beautiful weekend for Friday and Saturday on Shabbos. Sunday as well. There is a chance for thunderstorms on Sunday, but the humidity is going to be low and the temperatures are going to be low. We have a chance for thunderstorms there for Thursday. The second front moves through. St. Louis was in between two fronts yesterday. That's where all the heavy rain's occurring, right in between these two fronts. The second front finally moves through late in the day tomorrow, and we see absolutely beautiful temperatures Friday and Saturday. This is an air mass coming out of Canada, Canadian air, and then the heat returns. And I actually just received a message from someone in Phoenix that it actually is very humid there. So maybe the European computer model is right after all. Although the GFS model also has dew points in the upper 60s, so I don't know if it's in the upper 60s or the upper 70s. If the humidity is like mind-boggling humidity, then we're talking about the European computer model. Maybe it's right for some of the neighborhoods there of 77 degrees. But the airport's recording more like 67 degrees, which is still pretty humid. Anyways, we have run out of time over here. Thank you for listening. I wish everyone a wonderful night. And stay well.